Hello, my friends. My name is Darren Gerdes, and this is the Daily Brief. If you're looking for Ukraine war news, this is the place you'll find it. I do these every day. We have a lot of ground to cover today, and it's mostly just kind of adding to previous stories to give you context so that you understand just what happened, like in the drone strike, how the nuclear power plant was almost significantly affected, those kind of stories. So here we go. 1,200 Russians off the battlefield. The battlefield's still hot, specifically around Pokrovsk. 3 tanks, 18 armored combat vehicles, 27 artillery systems, 52 vehicles and fuel tanks. This is Andrew Perpetua's list from yesterday. It's about 1-to-1, maybe a little bit more than 1-to-1 of Russian losses. But he hasn't put out today's yet that I've seen. Okay, overnight, Russia shot down a huge volley of Shahed missiles, Shahed drones rather, 74 Shahed drones, 60 were shot down, another 14 were lost and fell somewhere in Ukrainian territory, perhaps due to electronic warfare measures, but not necessarily so. At least one of them we know something weird happened, and I'll tell you about that in just a moment. 2 out of 3 Kh-59-69 cruise missiles were shot down, so for the Ukrainians, even though there was a huge barrage, it was a pretty good night because there wasn't a lot of damage done. Kyiv experienced its third attack in the last 4 days. Like, they're really going after Kyiv in a significant way. Around 15 drones were shot down over the city. Air raid alert lasted for about 6 hours in Kyiv. Okay, 4 reactors. This is what I was talking about with the nuclear threat. 4 reactors at Ukrainian nuclear power plants were disconnected from the grid during a Russian attack on Monday, the IAEA reported. This is from Andrei Yermak. So if you don't know who he is, he's the head of the office of the president. And so that's pretty significant that, as a source. Russia poses a nuclear threat. Their strikes on energy infrastructure are more than just terror against civilians. And here's Anton Gurashenko talking about the same thing. As a result of the attack, power units 1, 3, and 4 of the Rivivny nuclear power plant were disconnected from the grid. Also, power unit 3 of the South Ukraine nuclear power plant was disconnected from the grid due to fluctuations in the nuclear power grid. Russian attacks pose a significant risk to the stable operation of nuclear facilities in Ukraine and the safety of millions of people. So this has to be a frustrating conundrum for Putin because he's trying to black out the entirety of Ukraine from electrical power, but you don't want to create necessarily a nuclear incident because that could cause you to be a pariah within the world. But you got to turn these power nuclear grids off because you want to accomplish your objectives. So that's where Putin is, and it's got to be a challenging conundrum for him. Meanwhile, when we're talking about the drones, Belarus shot down a Russian Shahed drone over its territory with the help of aviation for the first time. On the night of August 29th, during another Russian attack on Ukraine, one Shahed drone flew into the territory of Belarus in Yelsk district of Gomel region. After the drone entered the airspace of Belarus, a fighter of the Belarusian Air Force chased it for about 20 minutes, and then at least 2 explosions were heard. I'm not sure why there were 2, but okay. I mean, that's what happened. A Russian drone shot down by Belarus. Okay. Ukrainian gunship down to Shahed. Now, this is the second time that I've seen this. I saw this before. I was about to show you a video about it, and then I thought better of it because, I'm trying to stay within YouTube's guidelines here. So there's no, this is just a still shot of open space. You're not seeing this, but the crew of an Mi-24 helicopter destroys a Russian Shahed 136 kamikaze drone with fire from its onboard cannon during a recent attack. Okay, so this is the second time that that's happened. HIMARS destroys Russian artillery radar. This a few days ago. Russian 1L-260 Zupark M counter-battery radar was struck. And again, I'm not going to show you the explosion, but what it looked like just before that. Probably should have shown you the after instead of the before, but okay. Sorry about that. I'll get that straight next time. Ukrainian drone forces are reportedly digging in to hold newly captured areas in Russia's Kursk Oblast, while Russian troops make significant advances southeast of Pokrovsk. I think that's the big story here as far as the troop movement on the ground. I think that's the reality, is that They're not going to really push a whole lot further or faster in Kursk. Maybe they'll branch out a little bit, but they're digging in to hold the land that they have. And in Pokrovsk or toward Pokrovsk, they just keep coming. And if you look at the actual article from Euromaidan Press, same headline, as reported by the Institute for the Study of War on 28 August, the intensity of Ukrainian offensive operations in Kursk salient has reportedly diminished. Ukrainian troops now attempting to hold and fortify the selected area, so they're not really trying to push a whole lot farther or faster, not right there at least. Some Russian sources claim that their forces are gradually stabilizing the situation. Well, I think it's more that the Ukrainians are digging in than that the Russians are stabilizing. But okay. Now, in Pokrovsk, Russian armed forces have reportedly made substantial tactical gains southeast of Pokrovsk in eastern Ukraine. They're pushing in all kinds of directions. They're pushing here, 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 and here. Um, they really, really, really badly want Pokrovsk, and they're going to spend as many men necessary, I think, in order to take it. And the only way that I see them getting bailed out here is if General Winter comes along and comes along quickly, because on the other side of General Winter, they'll be able to have regrouped or have other strategic assets in place. Maybe F-16s or other things would be potentially involved, but General Winter has to save the day here. Okay, in a move likely to affect Ukraine's. By the way, before we go on to that, Greg Terry and I are about to talk about what he saw. He was actually physically in this region not too long ago. What he saw firsthand on the ground. So look for that video. In a move likely to affect Ukraine's war efforts, China to restrict exports of integral drone components starting on September 1st. So I read the article, but I'm not sure I exactly understand what's going on here. Starting September 1st, China will prohibit the export of numerous radio and drone components through standard parcels delivered by air and sea. Now, that ban on standard parcel delivery includes components used to build drones, such as motors, cameras, quadcopters, radio systems, things along those lines. But it doesn't apply to commercial cargo. So I guess if they're selling it to a retailer, it's okay. But if they're selling it like direct shipping to your house, it's not. And that would affect Ukraine in a negative way, because like there's guys sitting around in their basement in Ukraine assembling these things, and that's different than the large scale commercial version. So I think that might be what's going on. U.S. plant increased production of 155 millimeter ammunition for Ukraine. This is a Scranton plant, increasing it by 50% output by 50% to 36,000 rounds per month. Problem is that Ukraine really could use about 100,000 a month. Like that's where they are if they want parity with Russia. Okay, Russian media reports that Pavel Popov, Russian ex-deputy defense minister, has been arrested for fraud. Popov and his family own numerous properties in prestigious areas of Moscow, the Moscow and Krasnodar region, worth more than 500 million rubles. So something was going on. If you're making that kind of money while you're in the military service, something's not right, right? So again, the Army general was dismissed from his post 2 months ago. He worked as deputy defense minister for 11 years, supervised the systems of Russia's defense control centers. So he was on the take, but that corruption was a good thing for Ukraine, right? The case against him is related to the activities of Patriot Park. Investigators said he is accused of fraud in the construction and maintenance of the park. He worked with Shoigu for a long time. So this is why, like, even if everybody else is doing something that's shady or nefarious, you shouldn't be involved, even if everybody else doing it, because someday it may come around, and it came around for him. Okay, this lady is having to leave her home. Populations flee, leaving everything behind from a lifetime, all too soon to be destroyed. She says, I find it very hard to find it in yourself to take your keys and close your doors forever. I can only imagine. When you know that you're not coming back, when you say goodbye to everything, your pillows, the flowers you have to throw away, and leave forever. Imagine abandoning your own home. I mean, because you know that you're not coming here again. When you look out the window in the evening and you see one window across the street that's lit up, and you realize that soon that will go out. The pain of knowing that it's forever pierces you. You can buy a lot of houses, but you'll never buy your home, your school. We leave our hearts here. It's so sad, and it's all for what? Like what was this all for? Okay, Ukraine is again proving that they know how to fight a dictatorship with surprise and aggression that creates doubt and fear in the dictator. Meanwhile, allies continue the failed model of appeasement and diplomacy, which only emboldens the dictator. And that was a reply to Marcus Kolga, who said Ukraine's offensive in Kursk has damaged Putin's carefully crafted image as Russia's lone heroic defender, and it could represent an opportunity for his critics and enemies. And that's right, because if he's basing his whole thing on see what a strong man I am, and then that the armor is pierced or the veil is pierced and we can see behind it and go, maybe he's not that strong after all. But he's not without allies, including in Ukraine. Here's Medvedchuk. Ukraine remains on the verge of destruction after the incursion of the armed forces of Ukraine in the Kursk region. Viktor Medvedchuk, chairman of Other Ukraine Movement, former leader of Opposition Platform for Life, has written. So he's a Ukrainian who I believe is now in Russia, but he's a Ukrainian who Putin might have put in charge if he had won that 3-week special military operation thing and then put his puppet in place, saying things like, when Zelensky invaded Russia, he signed a death warrant for Ukrainian statehood. Like, listen to what he's saying. Ukraine will no longer be a sovereign nation. Medvedchuk recalled the cool relations between U.S. Democratic candidate Kamala Harris and Zelensky. Apparently, the Democrats understand what abyss the Ukrainian leader is pushing them into. Okay, so this last paragraph is all silly speculation, but listen to this. Death warrant for Ukrainian statehood. They're saying it out loud, what their plans are. Okay, today is the National Day of Remembrance for fallen defenders of Ukraine. Never forget those who fought for freedom. And Zelensky was talking about this today. Ukraine honors the memory of all its defenders, all those who fought for our state, for Ukrainian independence, and sacrificed the most precious thing, their lives. And we will not forgive Russia for a single destroyed Ukrainian life. Speaking of that, I want you to meet Natalia Kuznetskova. She's a soldier in the 67th Separate Mechanized Brigade, or at least she was. She died defending Ukraine, and a year ago she lost her husband, who died in the battle for Bakhmut. That's where we are. Thank you, my friends, for your time. Thank you for the likes, the shares, the subscribes, and thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.